right, question 2. The spreadsheet. Open the spreadsheet to initiatives and work in the summary worksheet. So I'll go to data, initiatives, and firstly we need to change it to the summary worksheet. Okay. 2.1. Make the following formatting changes. Change the height of the first row to 30. Let's go do that. So I'm going to right click on the one and choose row height 30. Let's just move this a bit. 30. Okay. And then format cells B2 to G3 so that they appear as follows. Do not change any colors. Okay. So take a good look at that. Let's go have a look at what the data looks like. Okay, so the first thing I'm noticing is that these are all at the top of the cells instead of in the middle of the cells. So that means it's not vertically centered. It's vertically at the top. I want it vertically centered in the middle. There you go. And then the other one is that all three terms look the same, but this one doesn't. So this one, the two cells are still separate. So I'm going to select them both and then merge it. 2.2. The combined grand total, the total of cells J4 to J7. Let's go have a look. Grand total, J4 to J7. Okay, so the total of that is less than the goal amount displayed in cell J9. That's that one. Okay. Insert a formula in cell F9 to calculate the amount that must still be raised to reach the goal amount. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to determine how much the total is of all of this and then subtract it from the goal amount. So I prefer doing that in 2 steps. And the first one, I'm just going to do it, let's say over there. I don't want to do too far from the final answer. And I'm going to do a sum on all the raised total per class, a sum, and then I'm just going to subtract those two from one another. So to do that, I need to work in my final cell, which they said is F9, and subtract those two. Okay, now this method is called building blocks. You're allowed to do this for any formulas and functions that you want to. The important thing is just that the final answer, so the final correct answer, should be in the cell which they gave you, which is F9. And also make sure that you don't go put the intermediate steps that you did in some bizarre cell, like somewhere far out in a galaxy far, far away. Don't do that. They're not going to find it when they mark your matric final paper. And also don't put it somewhere and then hide it. Please don't. They have to be able to find this intermediate step. So try to do it close to the data if at all possible. 2.3. The total amounts raised by individual learners are stored in column H in the learners worksheet. Let's go have a look. So over here, column H. Okay, that's the total they raised. Insert the large function in cell F12 in the summary worksheet to determine the 5th highest amount raised by a learner. Okay, let's just go do that first, then I'm going to worry about that last sentence. So in the summary worksheet in F12, I need to determine the 5th largest. So they told me the function I need to use already, large. And I need to first go choose the array, that's the range where it needs to look. I'm going to go click on the learner's worksheet. Just pay attention. I'm looking at my function arguments here. I first need to put the array, then a comma, and then K. How many if I want to look at the 5th, hey? So, array, I'm going to go choose learners, and I want this total raised. Now, look at what happens. As I start clicking there, it actually shows I'm on the learner's worksheet, exclamation mark, in cell H4 to H12. Let me just finish that and have a look at what happens. If I'm on the second last cell, it still shows the cell references, specifically H4 to H82, but the moment I take it all the way down to H83, the name changes. So that means it's a named range. So instead of actually having to lock the range to be able to copy it down, it's automatically locked because they named the range beforehand. You guys did this in grade 10. All right, so total raised is that whole column. Nothing is wrong there. They gave that range a name. And then I just need to finish my function and say comma, and k is how manyth. And they said, if I have a look here at the question paper, the function must be able to be copied to other cells in this column to correctly determine the fourth highest, third, second, and highest amount range without having to change the function in each cell. So instead of typing k, I actually need to click on the k over here. Oh, but now I can't click there. This is over the top. I'm just going to click on the cell beneath it, and then I can move with my up arrow to that cell where I know the number 5 is. I'm going to close my bracket and enter, and let's just have a look at that function. So what's done here is you'll see, because I worked in 2 worksheets, it's given me the name, that it's the summary worksheet where it has to look for the k, the number, the 5th highest, and the array is actually a name, and it almost doesn't look like it works, but it gives me an answer. And if you want to double check, you can copy it down, but that wasn't the instruction. They just said it should work, but yes, that did work. So I'm going to undo. I've checked that it does work. Just to quickly show you how to make a named range, you can select any range, and then instead of the H4, if you type it here, and we call it test, let me just type properly, test, and I then press enter, you'll see if I now do a sum on this range, the same thing happens. It shows me the cell references unless I select everything, and then it shows me the name test, because then that's a whole range. Now, as soon as a range is named, it's basically locked, just the way you would have done with absolute cell referencing, which we'll use later. So if you have a range that's named, you don't need to lock it as well. If you need to remove a range name or anything like that, you can go here to formulas, and in your name manager, you'll see, that range total raised is on that workbook, and it refers to those cells. So I'll just delete that test one I did. Work in the learner's worksheet 2.4. Let's just go there. Okay. The amount raised by each learner by selling tickets for a talent show is stored in column D. Let's go look. Okay, so that's how much they raised by selling tickets. The price per ticket is stored in cell D3. That's that one, all right. Enter a formula in cell C4 to determine the number of tickets sold by Struwig R. All right, let's see. So to do that, I'm just going to take his total amount divided by the number of tickets. Now, something I see that many people struggle with is to actually realize when to do divide, when to do multiply, when to do subtraction, and so forth. You need to start paying attention to what you're doing in real life. In real life, if you go to the shop and the milk is 20 Rand for a 2 liter, and you see you've got a 2 Rand discount voucher, then obviously it will be 18 Rand. Nobody struggles to do that math. The problem is you don't realize what you did. When you actually think what you did subtraction. You need to pay attention to what you're doing. So if you buy a packet of toffees, let's say has 20 toffees in it, and you have 5 kids where you want to distribute it among these 5, then you do division. 20 divide by 5, but you don't necessarily realize that. You just know everyone's going to get 4 toffees. You figure it out. So just pay attention to what calculations you're actually doing, and then it might start helping you in Excel as well. 2.5. As a reward for their hard work, each learner received a voucher depending on the total amount that he or she raised, according to the following scheme. So from 100 to 199, it's a tuck shop, restaurant, movie and meal, books galore. All right. Insert a function in cell I5. Let's go look. There's I5. All right. to determine the type of voucher which Hanacom J received. It's this one, okay? So depending on how much this person raised. Use the lookup table stored in cells 06 to P9 in the learner's worksheet. There's our clue. 06 to P9 is my lookup table. That means I'm going to have to do a VLOOKUP because this is a vertical lookup. So let me show you how to know which part to use in which section of the function. As a human being, I can go look, okay, this person raised 350 Rand. So that's there. So this person will get a movie and a meal. Now that's exactly what a VLOOKUP does. Let's see. The first thing is, what does it look up? It looks up the value that the person raised, because whatever it's looking up is going to match the first column of your VLOOKUP table. Okay, so the lookup value is how much they raised. The table where they need to go look for this value is the one they've given us, and you're not going to get any marks for that because it was given to you. The column which I want the answer for is in column 2. I want the answer from column 2. So the column index number is number 2. Now, do you see this last section of the tooltip? That range lookup is actually in square brackets. That means the function doesn't require that argument, and you can actually stop it right there without carrying on. Now, sometimes well, let me put it this way. Most of the time with a VLOOKUP, that function argument doesn't count a mark. I'm going to show you how it works anyway, but most of the time it doesn't count a mark, and you can complete your function without it. So, what range lookup is whether it needs to look for an approximate match or an exact match. Now, is 350 Rand actually in this column? Is there an exact match of 350 Rand over here? No, there isn't. There's only an approximate match. It's between 300 and 400. So in this case, the last argument would have been true if I had to put it in. It can't be false, because if it was false, it wouldn't get an answer, because 350 is actually not found in this table. So true is correct, but you would get all your marks even if you don't complete that last one, because it's in the square brackets and the function worked without it. Please note, in this instance, there were no marks awarded for locking the range, the table array for the VLOOKUP, but most of the time you will get awarded marks for that. So to be safe, always lock your table array using your F4 button. Oh no, I did it too far now. Let's select the right ones. Just the table array. There you go. 2.6. Insert a formula in cell M7 to calculate how much less money would have been raised from the sale of tickets, column D. Let's just go look. Okay, so I must work here, M7, and how much less money would have been raised from tickets, column D, if each learner sold only 4 tickets. Okay, the total amount raised from ticket sales is stored in cell D84, so they've already done that calculation for me. Okay, so if this number was 4 for each learner, how much less would they have made than this amount they have actually made? So I'm going to do that in a few steps again. My final answer needs to be in M7. So I'm going to start here by K7. That's going to work nicely. It's not in anyone's way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to count how many learners there are. So to do that, I'll use the count A function. All right, remember, count A is like count anything. It'll count any cell that contains a value, and then I'll just select all of their names and enter. All right, so there are 80 learners, and they said 4 tickets each, and each ticket costs 20 Rand. So I'm going to say 4 times, and I'm not going to type 20, I'm going to click on 20 over there, because it's been given to me. All right, so each person would have then actually raised 80 Rand. So let's rather do this in another step. I'm actually going to say this number of learners times 4 tickets each at that price. And then that's the amount. All right. I could have, if I wanted to do another step, let's say I want to do another step, I could have just done it maybe here and say that one times that one. And now I want to find out how much less money they would have made. So I take the large amount minus the small amount. There you go. That's how much less they would have made. 2.7. The learners were sponsored for taking part in a big walk. For each kilometer a learner walked, he or she received the amount stored in cell M11. The total amount, all right, hold on, let's see. Okay, M11, hold on, there, where am I? M11. Okay, so that's how much they made per kilometer. So these are these fundraising things of, will you sponsor me if I go run or if I go walk, whatnot. All right, so this is how much they made per kilometer. The total amount that each learner received in this way is stored in column F. Okay, so there's how much they made, and that's how much they got per kilometer. That's the total amount they made. Insert a function in cell M14 to calculate the total number of kilometers walked by the learners in class 12C. Okay, so first what I need to do is I need to find out how much money did everyone in 12C make. So I want to do a sum on this column, but I only want to sum the amounts from 12C. So if I only want to sum specific things together, I'm going to use a sum if. So let's start with that. I am going to use my function builder. As soon as I've opened up my bracket, I can use this FX button to launch my function builder, and it helps me to remember where what goes. Okay, now if I start with a sum if, I never know what on earth goes in range and criteria. So personally, I prefer starting with the sum range, because that's easy enough. What I want to sum together, the amounts they made in the big walk. Okay. Now, what is my criteria? My criteria is I want to sum everyone from 12C, right? So in this instance, I could type 12C, that's fine. I am not allowed to click in cell in here for 12C because it is part of my data. If it's part of my data, I may not click it. But this is a convenient little summary table that is outside my data. You'll see it's not even right next to it. Because it's outside my data, I am allowed to click over there. Right, the range, where on earth is it going to go look for 12C? And that is in this B column. There you go. Now you'll notice as soon as you have two ranges in a function, you have to be sure that they use the exact same number of rows. You can't end one at one cell less or something. It's going to give you a big error. All right, so that is how much they made in total, but that's not how many kilometers they walked, because this question specifically wanted to know how many the total number of kilometers they walked. So to do that, I'm going to divide it by 6 because they were paid 6 Rand for each kilometer. So if they made a total of 906 Rand, divide by 6, I can actually then find out, they walked 151 kilometers. 2.8. A function was entered in cell M19 to determine the number of learners in class 12A who received a restaurant voucher, but the function returns an incorrect answer. Okay, let's just go there. M19, no, that one. M19, we need to know how many people in 12A received a restaurant voucher. Okay, so they started some other function there. Let's just leave that. They're saying that's not working correctly. We'll find out why now. But the function returns the incorrect answer. Correct the function in cell M19. Ensure that the function in cell M19 can be copied to other cells in this column to correctly determine the number of learners in the other classes who received a restaurant voucher. Okay, so first tip, nothing is wrong with this function. You actually get a function that is called count ifs. And basically what that does is it enables you to count records, and if I mean a record, it's like access, like a little row. I want to count records that pass more than one test. So usually if I would just do a count or a count if of all the restaurants, I would only be looking at one column, and it would count this row for me each time it finds that value. In this instance, I wanted to look at two criteria. I wanted to look at the class and the voucher. So 12B, restaurant might be right, but class is wrong, so not going to use it. 12A, ooh, that's right, but no, it's a movie and meal. I'm not going to use that. 12C, no. 12A, restaurant, ding, 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 we've got a winner because it passed both tests. So let's see how to do that. I'm not going to try to figure out this myself. I'm rather just going to open my function builder. As soon as I'm inside a function and I'm inside the brackets, I can go click on the function builder, and then I can continue with this. So my criteria range, let's just double check, that's I4 to I83. That seems correct. And the first criteria is restaurant. That's right. Now, the moment I click in criteria 1, you'll see an additional box opening up here. Do you see? Criteria range 2. So now I'm allowed to add a second range. This is the range I'm going to use for the second one. You notice that I use exactly the same number of rows, the same number of cells. And criteria 2 in this instance is 12A. Again, I can't click on 12A. I can try. Let's see. Okay, it allowed me. Otherwise, I would have clicked at the bottom and just move it up with my cursors. My little arrows on the keyboard. Okay, let's go say okay with that. And now I'm going to do a test. They didn't ask us to copy it down, but they said it should be able to copy down. So let's see what happens. If I copy down 1, 2, 3 cells, if I open this one up, you'll see what it did. Let's just first see the top one. If I click inside the function, or just like in the formula bar, it gives me nice color-coded help. So you'll see the red one is this range, the blue one is that range, and the purple one refers to the class. Now if I look at this one, something went wrong. I copied it down by 3 cells. And the same thing happened here and everywhere. Here it copied down 1, 2, 3, which is fine. I wanted that. But it copied down 1, 2, 3 here as well, and here, as well as even at the bottom. It copied down for 3 cells. So I don't want that to happen. I want these two ranges, the blue and the red ranges, to stay constant. So if I want that to stay constant, I'm going to have to use absolute cell referencing. Or I could go name the different ranges. You're welcome to do that. So I'm going to press undo because I wasn't supposed to copy that down. And let's just fix that. I'm going to select it in here and press on F4 and select it over there and press on F4. You'll notice that I lock the start of the range and the end of the range, not just the start. If you're unsure of what to lock, in general, the good principle is whenever it's a range, you can lock it, but don't lock single cells. That's generally the guideline if you're doing this kind of summary tables. But obviously, it's not always correct. With something like this, I think in this instance, they actually allowed that. Let's just double check. I've got the memo here somewhere. Give me a second. Okay, so I've quickly looked. This one they allowed exactly like it is. But if I would have had to copy it down, I would have had to lock this single cell. So it's not an absolute rule, but whenever you're doing a summary table, that's always a good rule to go by, is lock your ranges, but keep the single cell references relative, that it can actually copy down. You'll see what happens if I click in the cell over here and I double click, it blocks out the other cells where I might want to work. Instead, you can just click on the cell once and click in the formula bar at the top, and then it won't block out the cell that you want to work with. 2.9. Learners in all the classes who received a restaurant voucher have decided to book tables for a meal at a restaurant. Each table can accommodate a maximum of 6 people. Okay, change the function in cell M24 to calculate the minimum number of tables that must be booked. Display the answer as a whole number. Okay, so what they did here is they did a sum of all the restaurant vouchers. Now, I saw that this counts 3 marks, so it can't just be divide, because they say each table can accommodate a maximum of 6 people. So my first instinct is I'm going to have to divide this by 6 to find out how many tables they need. Okay. But then they said display it as a whole number, and I've only done one action. So this tells me I'm probably going to have to do a round function. Now, if I do a normal round, this is going to end up as 6 tables, but then there will be people without seats because they said each table can seat 6 people. So this is an excellent example of where you need to do a round up, because you'll rather book an extra table where there are only 2 or 3 people who have a seat, but they have a whole table to themselves, because you can't book too few tables. So there are 2 ways of doing this. The one way is to actually go take the function that you've already done, or all the whole formula by now, because as soon as you use a divider, times or subtracts or whatever, as soon as you've used that, it becomes a formula. Doesn't matter, but I'm just going to cut all of that and leave the equals, and I'll do round up, and I'm going to use my function builder, and everything I've done, I'm going to paste it there in number, and I'm going to say the number of digits is 0 because they want a whole number. That's the one way of doing it, and you'll see it builds the function for you if you struggle with syntax. Otherwise, the other option would be is just to cut this whole thing. You'll notice that I cut the contents of the cell and not the cell itself, and then I go paste the contents over there because I want my final answer in cell M24, because the instructions said that it should be in cell M24. And then I can do my round up over here. Oh, I hate it when it blocks that, so let's just go do it over there. Round up of that number, and how many digits? 0. There you go. So those are the 2 ways you could do the round up. Or if you actually like syntax and you find it easy, of course you can just type the first example from the get-go. 2.10. Conditional formatting has been applied to column H, the total raised, using an icon set. Okay, let's go look. Column H. Okay, there we've got the icon sets. Change the rules according to which the icons are displayed as follows. Okay, before I read that, let's just go find where on earth to do that. So, if you want to change a rule that's been applied, the best is to actually just go click anywhere in any of the cells on which the conditional formatting was applied. Then I can go to conditional formatting and choose manage rules. If I can't find the rule and they didn't actually tell me where it was applied, I can click anywhere and I can go to manage rules, and I can choose I want to see the formatting rules for the whole worksheet. There it is, and it shows me it's been applied to H4 to H83. If I want to edit this, I can either click on edit rule or I can just double click it. Let's see what we should do. We need to change the rules according to which the icons are displayed as follows. A green flag icon must be displayed if the value in a cell is 350 Rand or more. So I'll just do that so we can see what we're doing. All right, so green when the value is greater than and equals to 350, and it is a number. You'll see if you put one of these on from the beginning, it actually has percentage as an option here, but I just want the number. That's fine. Oh, now I went and reset it. There you go. 350. There you go. Okay, second one. No icon must be displayed if the value in a cell is less than 350. So this less than 350 should be no icon. So I'm going to change this one to say no cell icon. And then the rest will all be no cell icon. Okay. I don't even need to say apply. It's just going to do it automatically when I say okay. So you'll see, even though I stood in a completely different cell, I was able to edit this rule because I knew where to find the rule. 2.11. Change the chart in the learner's worksheet so that it looks like the example below. By following the instructions under the screenshot, do not change any colors. A picture of what your final chart should look like is also given below the chart in the worksheet. Let's go find it. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to go there, but I actually want to move it a bit more. So you'll see if I just click this, it doesn't look like I can go any further, but if I then click on the single button, I can move it up a bit. I always prefer to keep a bit of an open space over here because I know any of the chart tools I need are usually going to pop up over here. Add the vertical axis title, Learners. Do you see this vertical axis title, Learners? So I'm going to select the whole chart. And on the plus icon, I'm going to choose axis titles, but I don't want for both. I just want for the vertical one. So I'm going to choose the little arrow and choose primary vertical. Now I can double click on this and I can change that to Learners. There you go. Enter. No, let's just click away. I actually prefer clicking on it and then changing it over here. If I change it over here and I press enter, you'll see it updates over there, by the way. Okay, ensure that only 4 horizontal grid lines are displayed. Let's see. So at the moment we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but here there are only 4. That's because the axis actually ends at 40 and this one ends at 50. So I'm going to right click on the item that I want to change and I choose Format Axis. Here I get my little boxes. The minimum is correct, but I want the maximum to be 40 instead of 50. Enter. There you go. Now I've only got 4 horizontal grid lines. Next, fill the restaurant data point column with the image to hamburger so that each image represents 5 learners. Let's go see. Now firstly, if you click on the data series, you'll see with a single click it selects all the columns. It doesn't just select the restaurant data point. So if I only want to select the restaurant data point, I have to select it a second time so that the selection is removed from the other 2. Now I can either go right click fill and do it over there, but there I don't have the option to do the whole weird 5 images per kid. So I'm going to go to format data point. That's the right place to do it. And I'm busy with the formatting of it. So that's the paint bucket. And I want to fill it with a picture, which I can find in a file that they've given to me. To hamburger, insert. All right, that already awards some marks. Now what they want is every 5 kids should be 1 hamburger. You'll see between 0 and 10 we have 2 hamburgers. So it's not just stacking it. It's actually stacking and scaling it to every 5 learners being 1 hamburger. There you go. I shouldn't worry too much about the fact that it looks stretched out because I do have 2 hamburgers between 0 and 10. So I've done that correctly. Ensure that the data point for Books Galore is included as shown in the example. Because at the moment it's not. It's just Tuck Shop, Restaurant and Movie Meal. So I'm going to select my whole chart instead of just this data point. Whole chart anywhere on the white. And I'm going to go to Chart Tools, Design, and choose to select the data. Now, if I click on Select Data, I have a choice to reselect it. And you see it shows me this little dotted arrow or dotted line that moves. And I can just reselect that to include Books Galore. Okay. And there it looks exactly like the example they've given to us. Work in the survey worksheet. 2.12. Insert the mid function in cell B4 to extract the 7th digit of the ID number of column A of the learner with ID, and then it gives me that ID number. Okay, so B4 is this one, and then it will obviously be the same row, so I'm not even going to bother comparing it. I need to use the mid function to extract the 7th number. So let's start, because they've given me the function. As soon as I've opened my bracket, I can use my function builder for extra help. The thing is, nobody necessarily remembers, firstly, in what order everything goes, and that's why it's very important to look at your tooltip. But secondly, what if you're not sure what start num and num chars or num cas or whatever that is means? Let's go look at our function builder. The text is the string text from which you want to extract the characters. It's this one. Start num is the position of the first character you want to extract. I want to extract the 7th digit. Num characters, num chars, specifies how many characters to return from the text. So how many do I want back? I just want one. I just want the 7th one. So num chars is then 1. There you go. Do you see how much easier it is if you actually go look at the function builder help? Nobody can remember all of these by themselves. That's why it's lovely that we have this built-in help that we may use. 2.13. The first 2 digits of a South African ID number, column A, indicate the year of birth of the person. For example, the digits 01 indicate that the person was born in 2001. Let's just have a look. Okay, so there we've got the ID numbers, and it seems that all of these people were born after the year 2000. Insert the date function in cell D6. Let's see. D6, okay. So that the correct year of birth of the learner with the ID number, that's obviously on that same row, is shown in the same format as shown for the other learners, i.e. as 2002. The function must work for any year from 2000 and onwards. Tip, set the values for the month and the day in the date function, both to 1. Okay, that's quite a mouthful. Let's go have a look. So firstly, what I need to do is I need to determine what year of birth this is, because I have to be able to copy it down. I can't just look at it and then actually do it. So I'm going to use an extra column, and I'm going to use left, because I can then extract the first 2 characters from this ID number. Left of this, comma, and you see there's num chars again, which is optional for a left function. Otherwise it would just give me 1. But in this case I want to use it. I want to use 2 number characters. Enter. Okay. You'll see I did it in the same row, so that if I need to, I can actually copy it down for all the other records. It's better that you don't do it in some odd place like that. Rather do it in the same row that you are working in, so that it would work if you copy it down. Alright, now they instructed us to use the date function in this cell, D6. Now I can't even just go type 2002, because if you actually have a look here, you'll see all the other dates are formatted. It's actually a full date and just displays the year. It doesn't actually contain the text 2001. It contains a date. Alright, so they said we need to use the date function. And let's go open our function builder. So they said we can assume that the year is 2000 onwards for everyone. So you'll see here, a year needs to be a number from 1900 or 1904. It doesn't matter. It's just about the way that Excel was coded. But either way, it can't be just 2. The year can't just be 2. So it has to be 2000 plus whatever I've got over here, which is 2. And you'll see it actually shows me that worked. It gave me the correct answer, 2002. And the month is the 1st and the day is the 1st. That's how they said we should put it in. Okay, that doesn't look right. I don't want it to show everything, so I'll just use my format painter. Format painter and paint it over that. If you forget to do that, you can actually go and format the date, right-click Format Cells, and change it by custom to just display the year. 2.14. Data validation has been applied to column H. What on earth is data validation? You've never seen that, right? Don't get a fright. It's actually not that difficult to find it. They'll never give you something that you've never found or never used before in a textbook or in the general caps if it's not easy enough to find it. So don't stress. Data validation has been applied to column H. Add the value other as the fourth option in the validation list for the whole column. Okay, so here is in column H, I've got these little drop-down lists. That's what data validation is. And they said I need to change this for the whole column. So my first step would be to actually select the whole column up to the end. And now I've never seen data validation. So if you're fortunate enough, and you have Office 2016, you can use this tell me what you want to do button and just type in the data validation. There it is. Okay. Now, if you don't have that, you can find it on the data tab. There's the data validation. If I click on data validation, you'll see it actually shows me that it has a list and it gives me the options in the drop-down list that I've seen. And I just want to add other. So I see the way it's typed, it's just a simple comma, and then I can type in other, like they gave it to me. And let's test it. There you go, that's other, and on the rest, it's also been done like that. So it's done it on the whole column because I selected the whole column from the start. 2.15. Determine how many learners are aiming for a better symbol in the prelims, column G, than they obtained in the grade 11 November exam, column E. Display your final answer in cell M4. So M4, they want to know how many are better in here, or they're aiming for better in the prelim than they did in grade 11. All right, tip, follow the building block approach. First use a function in a blank column to compare the symbols in column E and G, and then use a function in cell M4 to summarize these results. Okay, so I've actually never encountered a function where I can compare symbols, but I know how to compare numbers. So if I want to compare is 1 larger than 2, what do I use? I use an if, right? So I've already used this column now, so I'm going to have to use another one. I'm going to use the N column, and I'm going to start at the 4th row. And let's see. If, and I want to do a logical test because I want to figure out is the prelim a higher symbol than the grade 11 symbol. So I'm going to open that up in my function builder. And now this stumped me in the beginning, so I'm going to show you what I did wrong, and hopefully you understand why. I also took a while to figure out why. I couldn't get why this doesn't work. So I wanted to say, is the prelim symbol higher, so larger than the grade 11 symbol? And if true, I want a 1, and if false, I want a 0, because I want to be able to count them. I can just use a sum on it then. Okay. And then when I copied it down, they were all 0. And I was like, what on earth is going on here? This doesn't make sense. So eventually what I did is I had a look. If I look at A and let's say C, I'm just going to do a logical test. I'm not even going to do an if. You can do a plain logical test without an if. I just want to say, is A larger than C? And it says false. And I couldn't figure that out. But think of it. A is higher in the alphabet than C is. So you might not have gotten that at the beginning because you think, oh, A is better, but how should the computer know that A is better? You and I know A is better because we are teachers and learners, but the computer doesn't know it. A is higher in the alphabet than C, so A, in terms of computer logic, is smaller than C. So if I change that and I say, is A smaller than C, you'll see it actually gives me the correct answer. So this one should be the other way around. we want to know if G4 is higher in the alphabet than E4. So that's a smaller than. And you'll see it actually works then. I have a bunch of ones. So that one, B, where B is higher than C and where C is higher than D. Now I can just count all of those. So I can just go sum, or if I used a word, I could have said count if I had used yes or no or something like that. Or if I used just a plain logical test, like instead of actually doing the whole 1 and 0 thing, and just said, is this smaller, as in higher in the alphabet, as this? I got a false and true, and I could have just counted the number of trues. With a count if, that would have looked like this. Count if this range and my criteria is true. Because in this case it's actually a logical value, I don't even need to put on parentheses in. Okay, but there you have the final answer. Now, personally, this took out quite a bit of figuring out for me. So for 3 marks, this amount of effort. If I had time, I would have gone over it. But please remember, in an exam, if a question has you stumped and you don't know where on earth to start, and they hardly gave you they gave you a tip here, but you weren't sure what to do, then really just mark it and see if you have time to come back. It's extremely important to use your time wisely in an exam. You should logically, I know this took a bit more than 3 minutes probably, but I would say 3 to 5 minutes maximum that you could use on this question because it counts so little. So for a 5-mark question, you may use 5 minutes on that. And if you know this is going to take you 20 minutes, then don't do this question. Rather move on to something else and see if you have time to come back to this. So always have a pen with you so that you can mark which questions you want to re-examine afterwards. But don't be afraid of skipping things. Skip the ones that you're not sure about and see if you have time to come back to them.